later on if... Okay, so good morning again and welcome to our subject, Teaching Technology and Learning. So today is September 15. It's Tuesday. And our lessons for today includes evaluating materials, direct and purposeful experiences, and contrived experiences. And if you want to know more about this topic, there's a link that I also included so that you can try to retrieve and learn more. Quote for the day: if we teach today as we taught yesterday, we rob our children of tomorrow. Who would like to elaborate what does this quote mean? Ah, sige, ako na lang. So, this means that if we don't upgrade or if we don't really address the issues and concerns of the students, we are robbing them for the possibility of learning more. Just like now, in online teaching, there are many teachers who are not able to go back to school, who are not able to really teach because of the problem that they don't know how to do the online teaching, or some schools are already closing. So as a teacher, we need to upgrade ourselves. We need to really welcome the new change. And even on the internet, you can see a lot of stories from the teachers who are really doing their best to do this online teaching. Now, in our teaching technology and learning, we've learned about the history on where it actually started and what are those teaching pedagogy principle or the process that we can do in presenting our lesson. Today, we will try to dig more on what are those ways that we can evaluate instructional materials. So, as a teacher, we all know that we have a roadmap in our teaching. 10% is the preparation of a teacher that includes her lesson plan, her instructional materials, and 90% is her performance in the classroom or in the online class. Instructional materials includes the following: um, the assistance where teacher can help in the facilitation of the learning process. At the same time, what are those different supplements in the teaching training of the teacher? Now, question: can you remember those times when your teacher are preparing a lot of things in your classroom?
Yes, miss.
Are you more engaged if teacher are posting a lot of cartolina, a lot of visual aids? Do you think
Yeah.
you will be more excited and you'll be more engaged? Yes, no? So here are some ways for us to check the instructional materials. I'm so sorry for the background noise. Maybe you can hear some rainfall or electric fan or maybe the dogs. So I hope you'll be patient. Now, there are ways in selecting instructional materials. Now, be mindful that when you will be in fourth year, there is this month in the first semester where you are required to do your teaching demo. And usually, in the teaching demo, ang palaging namamayagpag ay ang mga English majors. Why? Because aside from they are able to deliver their teaching demonstration with confidence as they just do the tuwang, kay lami kay sila mo English, they are also well prepared with their instructional material. So it's like really basta English major, wala jud kay na demo. But sometimes with the other subjects or other major, na jud dito ang mga demo. Murag, when teachers would have to critique or have to be the adjudicators for the teaching demonstration, usually ma-excite me, "Uy, English na English." O sige, volunteer dayon me because murag magpatagisay man ni og kanang mga banggiitan ba. So I hope that you will also keep that one, that branding for the English majors, because on each teaching demonstration that you will have, there's actually best in teaching demonstrator for specific major like in ECE, SPED, English, and the rest of the subjects. So here are the guidelines that you also need to keep in mind. So number one, your material should be presented that it is precise and the ideas are true to the topics that you discuss. Like it should be relevant to your discussion. What I can remember from some of the discussion from English majors, they had different sentences, explanation on poetry. There's also colloquialism, and I am really excited whenever it's secondary English kay mga nindot kay mga topics ba, di ba? Kamo ready na ba mo mag-demo, or you also had your previous teaching demo with your other teachers before, or wala pa?
Wala pa, miss.
Wala pa.
Wala pa, miss.
Okay.
Mas
So
Sino na ana?
So some of you maybe you're able to experience, but usually this second year unta, teachers are supposed to expose you with some of the teaching demonstration. But anyway, you also need to keep in mind that your materials would meet the instructional objectives that you will have. Just like I can remember one of the teaching demonstration from the general education, she presented living things and non-living things. And you imagine Ma'am Leia was there, Miss Chini was there, and she brought along in jars cockroach, lizard. She also had pagong, and there was also a little murag chick man siguro to iyang gida, and you need to touch it so that you will guess what are those animals ba. And with that one, with that kind of activity, it was very, very engaging, and somehow it was um kulba ba kay what if kanang snake dito imo matouch or something. So as a teacher, you need to make sure that you also meet the instructional objectives and make sure that it's safe for the students to explore. Another thing is to present materials which are appropriate to the age and to the cognitive level of the students, and when they are presented it should be satisfactory. So for English, what you usually present, you have pictures. In presenting pictures, it should be one bond paper. So, dapat mag-ready-ready na mo og mga printing materials ninyo. Although, you may ask, Miss, pwede mag-PowerPoint presentation? Yes, it could be so that you can save your resources or even the money for the ink. But what Ma'am Leia would always have, where Ma'am Leia is the head for the teaching demonstration, she would always encourage traditional teaching or traditional way of teaching demonstration, because in the event when you will be doing your demo in the public schools, you know how to do it ba. So what we usually advise is, for example, for pictures, you need to present a quote or a famous speaker. So one band paper is one picture. Yeah, if you have so many speakers, mo na siya mahurot gud imuhang money sa teaching demonstration. In selection also for the cartolina, the colors, make sure that they are appropriate and not too bright or not too glary for the students to check or to see. Like for example, yellow green, mga neon green, um, neon pink. Nice man yun na siya, no? But it can be used for an accent, or like maybe you can use that one as one of your decors. But to make use of it na murag as a whole, murag colorful kay imuhang board, sometimes kuan ka daugon ka sa rating, because there is this 144 checklist. You imagine there are 144 checklists in the rating scales. So you also have your rubrics in the teaching demonstration. Teacher will check, we teachers would check your confidence, your level of confidence, how you are able to brace yourself with the ability nga teacher gid mo when you are presenting there in your teaching demonstration. There's another category if you're able to address the art of questioning. So imuhang flow of the lesson plan, were you able to meet the objectives? There's a 10 points different checklist na siya for the instructional materials. I can remember during that time when physical education major also presented singkil. So nagdala jud siya duha ka kawayan, and then uh, four kawaii bamboo sticks, and then we were dancing, we were practicing. P also, they usually bring along with them mga whistle, even the costume, ready yun na sila, jogging pants, P t-shirt, the whistle, which is a symbol or the branding of a P teacher. Usually sa English, abot ni sila mga um, they would be in formal attire with all the levels of confidence. So when you start your teaching demonstration, you had your rules of the day, your objectives, and how you present them, your visual aid from left to right, top to bottom. And then you don't overlap your visual aid. So make sure that they are presentable. Nya, teacher gid mo nga kung mapuno na imuhang board, of course, you take out those visual aid and you put the new visual aid. So dili pa di mag-overlapping. So I'm telling you this so that you have these series of years but to prepare to really imagine on what will happen to your teaching demonstration, thinking that we are also ought to use educational technology. So I can also remember one time it was one of the student English major, she presented series of speech niya imong i-critique or you need to retell again on what you've understood from the speech. And she had to present a clip. So she uses the computer and the PowerPoint uh, and the video presentation. But then, nikalit og, kana bitaw maglakaw-lakaw ka niya, accidentally ma-unplug ang kuan overhead projector, so murag nataranta siya, so nawa gyud siya sa iyahang presentation. And even if she was very confident at that time, na ano yun siya, na stammer siya, and it caused her to re-demo. So you imagine you really prepared hard for your teaching demonstration, and with these problems around with technology, with maybe imuhang mga masking tape din ha, kay wala ni pilit, yan nangatagak na imong mga kartulina. So it also affects your performance during that teaching demonstration. So you really need to give your best. Aside from that, you also need to hakot your audience. Like for example, you may say that maybe si Ariel baron ang assigned for the teaching demonstration. Usually it happens from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. where teachers are already available and they're ready to assess your teaching demonstration. So Ariel will hakot her audience. Uy, ori mo attend mo, student mo na ako, because it's also will affect your performance. What if dili comfortable imong mga student or ang ni-attend sa imong class kay mga PE baron niya, di kayo mo close, niya, di kayo sila mutingog sa imuhang discussion. So you also need to support each other during your teaching demonstration. And in the teaching demo also that you will have, your instructional materials will really play one of the best role in your teaching demo. But you as a teacher, you should be the best visual aid. Kay mana sila hala pinaghandaan gid mga dagko kay mga visual aids, so mao na ang usually best in teaching demonstration. I don't know if you know Bernard from Gen Ed. His discussion was about states of matter, so solid, liquid, and gas. So you imagine he made a big illustration of beaker. So it was a cartolina, but then nagdraw siya beaker. It was made of plastic. So, mura siya plastic cover niya. Kami, murag na pretend student, nagpour gid mig water on the cartolina, on that plastic beaker that he had ba. And it really amazes the teachers, the students. So, the creativity was also tested in creating instructional materials. Now, how can we address these things? Of course, in the online teaching. So, you will also need to navigate in the online classes presenting maybe links, games to help you in the activities for your students. So although I'll be presenting to you a lot of these things, make sure in mind that at the end of the day, it's always you who will be the best visual aid. So your IMs should also guide you effectively in your teaching, learning, teaching experiences. And we always have these nuggets of leading to the higher critical thinking of your students. And aside from that, we make it accessible and affordable. So long before our teachers magbaguod gyud ng mga cartolina, mga remember the Dutch words that we usually read, and all those mga worksheets or mga stories that they would give us to really let us read and assess. So this time around, because of technology, mas makasave na si teacher sa iyang money because pwede lang she can present through PowerPoint presentation or videos rather than writing it on the cartolina. So murag mas masave yun ang money ni teacher, but the time she really needs to prepare and presenting. Now, there's this way to really utilize those instructional materials, and most of the time in your licensure examination present gyud ni siya si kuan PPF PPPF. So first is we undergo with this 1972 illustration on how effectivity can be used in the classroom and teaching technology. So this was made by Mr. Hayden Smith and Thomas Nigel. So first is you need to prepare yourself, prepare your student, and also present the material, and you need to follow up. So first is as you prepare yourself, you should know your lesson objectives. Where can you get it? So in English majors and all the secondary majors, we have the curriculum guide. DepEd had presented to us the MELC, or the most essential learning competencies in the school system. Both public schools and the Department of Education schools would follow those different curriculum objectives and how they can perform their lessons in the classroom. Another thing is while you prepare yourself, you need to know, or you need to imagine what will be the outcome or what can be the interaction with your students when you prepare your lesson plan. And, and of course, you need to get your particular instructional materials that you can create. So, like in the story for English majors, you can choose different Greek mythology. There are a lot of stories in there. We can also discuss regarding mga alliteration, metaphor, simile, and a lot of those examples which you'll be presenting in your teaching demonstration, right? So you really need to make sure that your lesson plan is also relevant, catchy. Nya, imuhang students, you need to know your students. So second principle is to you prepare your students. So you set expectations, the learning goals, you give also the questions. So usually during the teaching demo kay mamili man ka sa imong audience no kay dapat mo cooperate sila nimo. Ilan na nang hatagan og question, "Hoy, mo ni mong question ha, nya answer jud ha, please." Nya mo basahan lang na ang kanang answer kay sometimes kanang imurang sabot-sabuton imong mga classmates ba because they really should help you in the teaching demonstration. But in the real scenario, di ba dili man jud nimo masabot imong students no if they would um participate or if they would make it engaging for you during the class discussion. But in the future, if you be the teacher, make sure that you engage your students, you motivate your students to participate in you, especially in the physical contact. Now in the online class, lisod kaayo magpa-participate because sometimes you don't know if your students are already sleeping on the other end or maybe the connectivity of the Wi-Fi or basin dugay kay ang reception sa talk ni teacher. So it's also a challenge for the teacher. Another thing is to keep them interested in your lesson flow. Next is we go to Another P is to present the material. So, as what I've mentioned, 10% is the preparation of the teacher. Unlike before, there are classes that I don't prepare. I just come with my marker and then I'll just write on the board. But now, as a in the online class, you really need to prepare. You need to really do with your slides. My other friends also from grade school department are already crying. Murag, padung na sila burn out because aside from preparing their lessons, parents are also calling, Miss, dili lagi nimo function ang imuhang link or kanang walay mabasa, walay attachment, and they have sleepless nights already. So, luoy sad ang mga teachers this time, especially from our grade school. And the learning management system, I don't know if you already if your other subjects or other classes are using our Adelante LMS, are you using that one, guys?
Yes, miss. Akas, miss.
Yes, miss.
And how was it?
Lagi siya usahay, miss niya. Mag-uol ko kay basin mo. Dili naman good maka-attempt balik. Na uban subjects ba di maka-attempt. So, if maway mo internet kay luoy jud ka.
Do you inform your teacher if like for example ma-out ka or like upa ka na human? Do they give you chances?
Yes, miss. But others kay no.
Kuan miss, paswerte ay gid sa professor miss uy naagi ibang nga professor miss nga labad kay sana miss usaha pa nimong hangyo kung unsa kagahi ang bato hinana sa ilang mga dughan.
Oh
Maglabad
ba?
imong kalag. Oo, mawaa jud imong kalag miss, mura kag makahilak nga makaingon lang gud ka usahay nga kaudango naman ko ani uy.
Mm. Okay, so actually, Bright Space, I don't know, there's no update. Nasapot na sad si Sir Babia because maybe wala pa yun sila na finish yun ba with all those username and passwords that we have because daghan biya gid ta no teachers and students, but the College of Education, we were just advised to use what is friendly or easier to the students, although we actually were somehow mandated to use the Adelante LMS kay para ma-check daw if active ba si teacher, if nag-do ba siya mga materials, mga quizzes. But what I was also thinking, hala daghan biya sa atong mga when we had a meeting Sir Bob, daghan man sad sa atong students nga nag-use ra sad og cellphone. Yeah, sometimes nag-data ra sad sila and we cannot really demand them to really kanang submit mga Word file or mga PowerPoint nga mga file ba. So, good thing Sir Babia was also supportive that, okay, you can just use Facebook for your announcements, Google Classroom, Google Meet, so that address lang yun ang mga students mo. So, maulagi sad na that other students had trouble in using the Adelante LMSK. Pag navigate bi ani mo no, nya ang mga notification baka dili siya ma-notify. Na-notify ba mo if you have assignments or if you have deadlines?
Wala, miss. Kay sa LMS,
No,
di man
miss.
mo notify.
Di siya mo notify? Yeah,
Oo,
ma-deadline.
unless kuan, miss, i-convert nimo into module.
Mm. And then ma-deadline na si teacher. Ma-zero na mo. So usually, we really need to be patient lang yun. And then just inform your teachers about it so that dili mo ma-zero. Okay, going back, when you prepare your materials, there is this avoid the ROG syndrome. So running out of gas. So what does this mean? Diba sometimes when we prepare so many things, murag hala unsa day ang connectivity ani ako ang gipost nga visual aid to my learning discussion. So as a teacher, you should prepare materials that would really allow you to finish your learning discussion with a bang. Or sometimes if dili nimo ma-finish kay kanang during the lesson daghan kay questions ang mga students, daghan kay interaction, so you still continue that energy in your lesson later on. Next is you need to rehearse, you need to practice, especially in your teaching demonstration. So maybe not all will be that confident in dealing, especially kanang tutukan pa jud ka ni example ang mulingkod baron sa inyo ha, sa English major kay si Ma'am Helme or si Sir Babya. Nya, what if tutukan pa jud ka ni Sir Babya nya maano ka, matangtide or hala asa na gito akong flow. So you really need to rehearse and wala ba that anay og copy when you do your demo. Although you can have like index card to check your questions or your flow time to time, but you should really be confident when you do your teaching demonstration. What if pag you mag-pretend man sad mi that we are the students, what if pa yun surang-surangon mo na mo? So, ma-challenge yun inyong patience, the way how you do the classroom management with your students. So, you really need to prepare and present the materials that will not lead you to this ROG or running out of gas. Trying out the materials also means that sometimes getting teaching demo, you're only assigned, for example, within the day, there are only 4 presentors. Nya, nag-prepare na ka sa imong masking tape, dagan kay prepare niya. Pila na ka oras, murag 1 hour na ang masking tape nga nasa open air. So, di siya mo pilit sometimes. So, inigbutang nimo sa imong masking tape, tuk, natagak ang imong visual aid. Yung mataranta na pud ka. So, when you prepare your demo, make sure that you also have murag what I usually call is the speaker's care. So na jud kay murag mo help nimo ba tinabangay, like for example, Sai can help her friend in her demo. Yeah, her friend also will support Sai whenever she would also prepare her teaching demonstration kay tinabangay jud mo sa inyong teaching demo on later on. Okay? So, next is to follow up. So, as a teacher, you have instructional materials to double check. Did I meet my learning objectives? Did I discuss this one? Is this lesson vague or did my student able to understand the lesson? So, muna imong balik-balikan as a teacher. Okay. Now, so remember the 3PF for your teaching demonstration or as a teacher in preparing your instructional material. Prepare yourself, prepare your student, present the material, and do the follow up. Edgar Dale once said, "We teach through a rearrangement of the raw reality, a specimen, maybe something as a whole, but when we direct these experiences, sometimes they are not properly used in the natural setting." This time around, we'll go to the another strategy that we can use in the teaching demonstration. I have a question for you. When you studied regarding the rotation, revolution of the earth, did you happen to visit the world or nag-venture ba mo sa other planets? How did you learn this lesson regarding revolution and rotation? Camille, can you bring us back to the time where you learned your lessons on science? Na si Camille?
Na ako, miss.
Yes, Camille.
Nalimot na ko, miss.
Nalimot
Pero kanang nalimot na ko sa kanang discussion pero usually if magkuan ana miss kay mo check ko og other websites or kuan para mas makasabot ko.
Okay, thank you, Camille. How about Jassy? Can you remember your lessons on science and how you were taught with revolution, Earth?
Kuhan miss, may dual din habe. Remember pa ba ko grade 4 man guro to miss. Lagi udloan mi ana. Hmm,
And can you recall what your teacher brought along in her on her
ku-
table?
kuhan miss kana bitaw murag styrofoam na circle pod ana tapos kanang gihimo rag himo yung mga planets iyang gi gihan-ay tapos iyang gikuan sa mo kung muna siya ang sun, muna siya ang Mars, ang Venus, ang kuan ingana ingani miss. Pero styrofoam iyang gamit tapos gi-color ra to niya.
Okay, thank you, Jassy and Camille. So true. Since we cannot literally go to the axis of the Earth, our teachers would use different experience for us to let us understand these concepts and lessons. And with that, it leads us also to the explanation that there are lessons that we cannot do in the real scenario, or we cannot have those real items. Do you also happen to have some election? Diba? We usually have some elections. We do a lot of campaigning, just like who among you here joined sa to mga sacred kasama or mga JOED officers. So these are some of the experiences that our students should have. I can remember that I had a lesson with my students where I lead them to the direct and purposeful way, where I taught them about Korea. So my my kindergarten were learning about the different cultures that they have. Since I have multicultural classroom, one day we thought about Korea, and one of my students brought along Korean food, and the mom also taught us several Korean words, and the kids really love wearing the Korean costume. So my students were engaged with this activity. Another direct purposeful experiences that my students had is we allow them to go out and explore to the garden, which is just near in our school. So we were learning about color green, and we were searching everything that was color green. I am also active in the Compass education, where the Compass education helped me in exploring with the robotics that we have. So kids would make an algorithm in the website, and muna makamove ang ilang robots or ilang set of Legos on how to transport one garbage to the other place. So they're actually hiring this time. They're looking for 5 teachers who can also join them in the team. Sayang no, I could have told them about you. Now, so those are the examples of the direct and purposeful experiences that we have. Next is teaching with contrived experiences. So meaning there are also experiences that we cannot do in the direct experience, or like presenting with real objects. So what we do is we just have the edited copy of the real world. So what are those examples? So we can have a model. So model usually are the representation of a big scale, just like the ones that I had a while ago. So since we cannot go to the planets around us, we can just have a model. And since we cannot also dig down atom, we can have a representation or a model of it. So as a teacher, we usually are exposed with a lot of these contrived experiences in the sciences or mga biological subjects. Another activity that we can have in the contrived experience is the mock-up model. We call it mock-up if you can manipulate it, just like this one. You can move around, or kabantay mo anang respiratory system, unya ini ka-open nimo, makita din nimo ang mga connections, mga heart, lungs, or when you open that model of the brain, kay matangtang dayon ang eyes, ang nose, then imo din babalik, or sometimes it can be a puzzle. So those are the mock-up models. So meaning you can manipulate, or you can utilize them. So in my classroom, I usually have different mock-up models for my students. Since I'm a kindergarten teacher before, I use a lot of um, mock-up materials where they can really have their imagination and creativity. So I have a lot of fruits where we pretend play for the cooking, and sets also for the creative or dramatic play. In my corner, I have a dramatic area, and I call it the sensory area. So in my classroom, I have 30 minutes activity time where students can choose what area they're going to explore for the day. So for the dramatic area, there are a lot of mock-up models in there where they can pretend that they are taking care of the babies, they are parking with some cars, or playing with some board games. And whenever kids would experience these contrived activities, I can really hear them saying words, saying exchange of conversation, and sometimes I can hear them copy the scenarios maybe from their parents. And some also had elicited different weird imagination, and you can also determine whose kids are passionate on a particular thing ba. And sometimes also you can hear them kanang mga 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 cursing sa mga kids because they hear it from their parents. So dramatic play also shows the color of the children. Another contrived experience is we have a lot of specimens that we can allow our children to explore. Can you remember the time when our teachers would ask us to bring mga gumamela, bring a frog, or bring an insect, and then we would dissect it? Or even in the schools, like we have University of San Carlos, they have a wide array of specimens that they keep. They had fetus, they had different kinds of vertebrae, different animals that they are really well kept in the USC Talamban. USJR, we also have our own, but it's antique, mga antique and mga materials from the Augustinian recollect. It's actually at the back of the canteen sa main. There's a little museum there. Were you able to visit? Wala mo naka-check, guys. There's actually a museum there.
Wala, miss.
Or maybe
Wala
they
may kabaw miss na
murag
museum.
murag na-close nila kay murag nakawatan man to before. Murag mga antique. Okay, anyway, we also include different objects. It can be an artifacts or it can be materials that we can use in our classroom. Another activity is simulation. Simulation in which we engage particular concepts in reality in our classroom. So just like this. So as what I've mentioned, I have a dramatic area where children can have a simulation on how they take good care of people. And since they are still kids, they usually engage and they usually love how to take good care of themselves. I also encourage my students to have a simulation on their reading activities with inventive spelling. So that is why I have a lot of magnetic letters in my on my wall. So sometimes ang mga kids, they have you observed kids, wana sila that mga past tense ba, nadyo na yung mga ed. Like, I remember my student, she would tell me, Miss, I already told you, di ba? I already told you. Iya kay, tell you. So kids, they usually have this automaticity that every past tense, not your ed. But you need to inform them that there are irregular verbs. Or kabantay mo, sometimes kids kay mo na, I already drink instead of drunk. So it's okay lang, but you need to correct them. Also, with the inventive spelling of the children, you encourage them, but there's a way also on how to correct them and lead them to the correct word. In the contrived experience, we also encourage to use natural resources or material. So, a lot of woods in my classroom and a lot of toys for especially sa mga young kids. But for you guys, for high school, you do a lot of printed materials and maybe you do it online. So even if you'd be a secondary major, sometimes maput man mo sa elementary or maybe in the preschool, just like my friend Miss Gwen. She was really so good during our college time. I thought that she would really excel more in high school, although she taught in USJR for the high school department. But now she's when she's in Korea, she is teaching kids who are in preschool, still teaching English with the Korean students. Now, another contrived experience that we can have is play. We usually have a lot of games and play, diba? When we were still kids, we really have allotted time in play or recess time. So in my classroom, I have also materials that my children can explore like different pots where it's from the earth and kabantay mo nang sa carbon ay mga gagmay kay na mga luto-lutoan na mo ana sa inyo ha mga kaang so I use them in my exploration philip
Butangan og tanom, miss.
mga plantita. So we usually have this one, mga sikat na kay mga plantita. So we also have a lot of puppets in my classroom and as you can see at the back I have a little sink and a lot of material. So my classroom is not the typical classroom nga daghan kayo chair. So I just have different corners in my classroom and when kids would come in, they have to choose their corner. Then three person or three kids lang man in each corner. So if puno na ang corner, they can go to the table area where they will do the worksheets. Others will do the pretend play. Others will do some spelling. Others will also have to finish other arts activity. So this is one of my classroom before in the kindergarten class where I allowed my students to do a lot of arts. So during February, we have the art exhibit and their artworks are displayed. Parents would come and even invite their relatives to check on the artworks of their children. So I allow them to explore even if mga dili pa kayo klaro ilang mga artworks or their imagination I just write some anecdotes on their activities or what is that art all about. Okay, there are 10 ways to make sure that the simulation process in your classroom will be upbeat. So number one is the games that we usually have in our classroom can help us discover these things. Number one, it developed the change in attitude. Who among you here, when you were having some games, yung mapildi kay mura ma-monster, masuko, kay napildi. Di ba, ani man tano, pagkabata, no? Or sometimes games also change specific behaviors. We can see kinsay manikas, kinsay kanang mamatid, or kinsay manukmag, kay napildi or natikasan. So games also help us participate new roles like what are those assumptions like kani nga bata silent man ni siya pero whenever they play game kay may mo siyang leader or mugawas iyang pagka jolly, mugawas iyang pagka creative. Games also can help us understand current roles. Ah, this child di ay is kanang paspas kay mudagan or this child is able to really defend the team or this child can somehow elicit another characteristic or behavior. With games in our classroom, this can also help us check if the students was able to apply the principles and abilities. For example, bago lang ka nag-teach sa imong story in English about honesty or teamwork, hard work, were they able to apply it in their games or were they able to apply those scenarios during recess time or during break time? Another purpose is it would increase the complex problem or the management of the situation. Like if naay magkilak-kilak nga classmate or friend, who's there to kanang murag mo pacify or to patch up things na ba or kanang mo blame na ba noon. Another one is it also help us illustrate the roles that may affect the life of the child. So mo ni siya kinsay mga leader who are those murag dali ra kayo mo follow sa iya ang mga friends and of course it motivates the learners to move physically and to develop their analytical skills and processes. So with these games around, we wanted to our children to be holistically developed that with these games makita nato kinsa ang murag ma-excite sila if there's a reward kinsa ma-motivate whenever it's a form of game because sometimes mga shy type they would come out when it's a form of game. Maybe they would think, dili na siya competition on the grades, but it's the competition on ability, your agility. And with games also, you can discover oh, this child is a fast runner. Pwede nila ako magamit sa kuan intramurals mo ni akong padaganon, or this child has a good analytical view, pwede din ako siya himuon nga kuan leader or president in the classroom. So you discover a lot of things, and with games also, maybe for young kids ma-discover nimo, hala uy ngano maning bata mura maning siya bayuti, or nani siya chance nga muadto sa other side, di ba? Let me ask you, um if you also had experiences before na your games, your form of games had mold you to be the person that you are now. Is it true, Claire? What are your games before, Claire? Claire Ninya, Daria, are you still there, guys?
Yes, miss.
Yes, Daria.
Yes,
What
miss.
are your games before?
Tetris.
Tetris. How about Kaysel? What games were you exposed when you were still little? Did
Role
you
playing, miss.
role play? Yes, we have a lot of role play. Can you remember before when you had your chance to play, maybe expose mo sa teacher, nagtawag mo sa inyong mga igagaw? Who had that experience?
Ako, miss.
Sige,
Ako, miss. Daghan, miss.
can you tell us what happened?
Kuan, miss. Ako ang blackboard kay ang bungbong. Akong mangkod akong estudyante. Ya, wadili kasabot sa akong isulti. Wala to,
Okay,
miss.
thank you. Okay, next. Okay, kinsa pa man to mo share? Okay, wala na mo share? Sige, we actually have so many games when you were still young. Like, maybe you had a chance to play balay-balay or magluto-luto mo. You collect those
Yes,
leaves
miss.
and all those tansan, all
Daghang
those
miss.
mga seeds. Sa pa na inyong makollect around, and then you play with your creativity with all those role-playing game. Or maybe, who among you here played, maybe you pretended to be a fashion model. Yan, kuan mo din na, nag-lipstick, nanghilabot mo sa lipstick sa inyong mga parents, sa inyong mommy, mga shoes, or somehow, maybe ka na mga Abu Sayyaf, no? Nagpretend na sila nga kuan sila, mga warrior sila when they were still children, or they're exposed with aggressive activity. But what we can see right now,
Ako,
yes, go.
ako sa una, miss. Kaya ganahan ko magpari, miss. Ano, simbahan siya. Matong-tong ko kasi sa kanang batahan sa pari. Mga kung mga ganahan ko masulat ko ng puti. Ay, ginoo ko.
Yeah, what happened now? Basig angel imong gusto.
Wala. Ay, si Bako, miss. Hindi ko magpari, miss. Uy.
Magmadre na corona siya,
Madrid.
miss.
Mag-Madrid na lang. Okay, so we actually have so many stories na, and if you're a teacher who would look forward, especially sa English, daghan manig mga pa-role play ang mga teachers in English major. So if you're the teacher who would really elicit these things in your students, the more you would help them understand the picture and they would remember. Do you had good English teachers during your time? Why are you English majors this time? Maybe you were encouraged, you had set of best English teachers. Maybe no, kaya na-encourage man mo. So again, the contrived experiences that we have, it helps us overcome the limitation of our space and time, since we cannot really go a lot, do a lot of direct purposeful experiences. Like, we cannot revisit those ancient Parthenon places in Greece, but we can somehow have a role play with the different Greeks, gods, and goddesses. We can edit reality by having some parts in our learning processes, and we can overcome those difficult insights like the planets, the marine life, and we help our students access with these activities. All right. Now, we have here uh, an example activity for you like, okay, now let's continue. We can also have dramatized experiences. So this includes a lot of things. So the dramatization can test the communication of the students who are engaged in your activity. Like you can also check who are those people who are engaging in the places with sharing their ideas, who knows the current events whenever they would deal with this dramatized experiences. So these are the examples. We have a lot of them in the English subject. So first is we use formal plays. Did you portray before Romeo and Juliet? Florante at Laura. Namo ani Ibong Adarna or
Yes, miss.
Yes,
Naan
Aligoyon,
miss.
miss.
yes,
Aligoyon, ungudod.
Haliguyon. Sa pa na mga
Ibong adan na rin,
Sibugan.
miss.
Ibong Adarna, and we also had mga portrayals on mga Odyssey and all those Greek mythology, no? Do you remember that the time when you created puppets, maybe hand sock puppets or marionette or finger puppets our teachers would create. We also love to have pageantry. Maybe your teachers before had a contest on the different planets. Nya, ikaw si Mars. Nya, motel din ka. So Mars is uh, it's one of the twin planet of the Earth, and you'll speak about the different facts of Mars, and then who is the best planet in the pageantry or countries. You would specifically share a particular country or a particular pageantry can also include different speakers or different people nga inyo i-portray. We also have pantomimes like jokes, or it can be a story also that we can portray, and a lot of role playing in our classroom. So these things that we have, like plays, pageants, pantomime, and the tableau, we usually include this one as part of our teaching dramatized experience. So plays, usually there's a character, and we usually have scripts where we portray vividly the roles in the life, and there's like discovery of someone's ability to portray. Di ba you had a role play before? Kato inyong teacher, si Sir Clyde, last time, last March.
Oh,
Yes, miss.
miss.
Oh, I was able to check some of you, and I didn't know, hala, na, din siya talent in kuan, di din siya shy type. So I was really so proud to some of you guys. So hopefully also that you'll be able to showcase your talents with the other subjects or courses that you will have. Another one is pageant. So commonly based on history, Philippines has known to be with the three B's: basketball, beauty queens, and what's the other one? Is it boxing? Yes, boxing. So every court in the Philippines, every places there's a court because we are basketball fans. We always also we hone someone to be part of the pageantry as a beauty queens. And another thing is we love boxing because of Manny Pacquiao. So pageants can also be part in our classroom. Pantomime is purely like physical or body movement, just like the Three Stooges. And tableau from the French word which means motionless or a screen or a freeze, role playing or portrayal. So according to John Dales, Edgar John Dale, he said that puppets can represent a lot of ideas. And here are some of the examples of puppets that we can have. We have a shadow puppet where it usually works with light and just a silhouette of that particular object. So we have shadow puppets using the hand or a cutouts. We also have rod puppets where we use this one in storytelling for the young children. And creativity also is being entailed with this rod puppet. Another set of puppets is what we call as the hand puppets. So you can choose from a different characters where it can be utilized in your stories or in the presentation, especially for young kids. Glove and finger puppets with the use of felt or colorful materials are also helpful when you portray many roles in your stories. Marionettes, on the other hand, also are playful in the sides of the different types of puppet usually intended for young kids. And role play, on the other hand, we do a lot of this one to imitate the character or the behavior of that person. And with the millennials, they usually love to copy or to mimic someone when they do a lot of role play. But there are also disadvantages and advantages on these TDE or the teaching dramatized experiences. So what are these? Number one, with the advantages, of course, they develop creativity of the children. You can discover a lot of their talents. Next is we help them utilize the knowledge or the facts that they gathered, and aside from learning them in a formal and rigid way, we can allow them to explore this in the creative side, in the dramatization. We also allow them to really acquire different activities, different creativeness, the power of creativeness, and their imagination. But there's also disadvantages. So sometimes it's time consuming kay mag-practice pa sila. Sometimes mag-prepare pa for the materials. Also, too much fun. So murag no, masabaan ta, magkiat-kiat na ang uban. So it's also one of the disadvantage. Another one is the correct forms of language, because sometimes there are foul words already used in the dramatization or masubraan o portray sa character. And another one is the techniques or the materials can require money. So instead nga si teacher ang mag-prepare, ang iyang mga students nagpalit na og costume, nagpatahi na dito pang Greeks and goddesses nga Medusa and all. So those are some of the disadvantages. So remember, drama does not just walk into our life. Either you create the drama, you invite the drama, or you associate the drama. So there's so many dramas in our lives. All right, so I think I was able to achieve my